What is up YouTube, and welcome to this Kingsman video, breakdown and ending explained. This was of course a prequel to the Kingsman movies and was perpetually delayed due to the pandemic. One half of me was super excited and the other half of me was pretty skeptical, as I did adore the first one and enjoyed the second one for what it wasn't really that great. But being a huge history buff, well, Dan Carlin's A Blueprint for Armageddon series of podcasts set me up to enjoy the historical names and events in this movie on another level, and I do admit I do like a good World War I movie. I was skeptical going in, as I wondered why we needed a prequel to this movie, which expands upon Harry Hart's explanation of the origins of the organisation being set up by people who lost their heirs in World War I. We have a mainline movie coming soon, the third one, which is going to be Kingsman Blue Blood. But this prequel kind of not only offers the origin to the agency, but also possibly sets up a thread of where this prequel story can go next, and also affect the modern timeline movies. We follow the Duke of Oxford Orlando as his wife is killed in South Africa during the Boer War. She's killed during an assassination attempt on Lord Kitchener at a concentration camp. Yep, the British did invent that. How awful. And Orlando is distraught after his son is absolutely exposed to this horrible moment. The Duke became a pacifist after fighting in what I could only assume is a war in Sudan, and funnily enough, the actor who plays Shola in this movie was also in a movie that also followed those times in Sudan during the Nile expedition, and it's called Four Feathers with Heath Ledger. Seriously, go and check it out, it's really, really good. After realising that the nobility was built on blood and suffering, he helped fund the Red Cross and later doesn't want Conrad to enter into the army or war, promising his late wife that he would protect him from that world, much to the detriment of him, really. However, there is a looming spectre of war in Europe, namely the Great War, aka World War I. Because millions of senseless deaths were not enough, they had to have a sequel. A man known only as the Shepherd leads a group of real historical people with the aim of destroying monarchies of Europe, which is the aim shared by most of them, such as Gavrilo Princip and Lenin. The Shepherd's true goal is to wipe out the British monarchy and free Scotland and give it independence. No one go back in time and show him that referendum, eh? As we found out at the end, the mysterious figure is actually played by Morton, and that is played by Matthew Good. He was operating from the shadows and also coercing Britain to go to war. During this time, it was an absolute huge arms race, knowing that if Austria-Hungary are goaded into war with Serbia, Russia will defend Serbia, leading Russia's allies in what is known as the Triple Entente would be obligated into following suit and declaring war against the Central Powers of Germany, Italy and Austria-Hungary, despite the Duke being good friends with the now deceased Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Morton wanted to force Europe to go to war and then lead Germany to crush England. Now, this is really interesting, as the king said, if there indeed was a revolution, as the king was worried about, the breakup of the UK would happen, and he knew how petty and easily manipulated the three cousins were. Obviously, George, Wilhelm and Tsar Nicholas, and it's mad to think they were essentially family. Now, obviously, Wilhelm II was salty in real life that he couldn't have an empire like the others, as Germany was only kind of reformed in, well, really late in Europe's power there, and he had to, play catch up with his empire. Thus begins Orlando's attempt to stop all of this from the shadows by starting a spy network of servants and invisible people with Polly and Shola. Conrad is desperate to join the army and later join in World War I, even receiving a feather of cowardice. However, his father inducts him into this proto-Kingsman agency, and Conrad's cousin warns him of the man Rasputin and tricked Nicholas and his wife with his mysticism. It's actually a credible theory that the British intelligence took out Rasputin, worried of his influence on Tsar Nicholas after he saved his son, thus beginning the group's aim to go over to Russia. Kitchener is killed on his way to Russia, leading Orlando and Conrad to head there. However, after some great actions and some hilarious exchanges, he is taken out, and Conrad would later, to his father's dismay, join the war effort. However, Morton sends Lenin to enact what was known as the October Revolution and aim to take Russia out of the war, which he does. However, Daniel Brühl's Erich gets the Kaiser to attempt to lure Mexico to invade the United States as the US consider entering the war, not because they want to stop the horrible bloodshed, but because their passenger ships and supplies were being risked. The US would not enter the war until later and famously refused, but if they could find the handwritten telegram confirming that this is true, they would enter the war. Woodrow Wilson did not want to join the war. Meanwhile, Conrad heads to the front, and even the king trying to get him sent home doesn't work as he swaps place with Archie, who I like to think could be a relative of Mark Strong's Merlin in the modern timeline. Now, the movie did go a bit downhill from here, and, well, he comes across a group of trench fighters who are designed to lead raids on trenches. Conrad was to find a spy in No Man's Land who had the telegram to prove Germany's ambitions, and he does so only to be shot by a soldier being accused of a spy. This was really rough. I did not like that one bit. I really felt it was a bit lame, especially as the actor was so good and the character, but it was needed to propel the Kingsman to being made, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson really is just the master of the bit part at the moment. However, Morton sends Mata Hari to seduce Woodrow Wilson, and while that is fiction, there was a real exotic dancer spy called Mata Hari. The Proto-Kingsman aimed to get the negatives of this video so the US will join the war and wipe out Germany. I found it cool that Wilson was drinking the Statesman whiskey, alluding to the US version of the Kingsman that we saw in Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle. They track down Mata's scarf to the mountain that Morton is on and lead a daring attack and take him out. He is the inspiration for Manners Maketh a Man, and earlier we heard Oxford say Oxford's not rogues, a precursor to Oxford's not brogues. Now, with the war done, the Kingsman Agency is set up with Archie, who did absolutely nothing, made Lancelot. I don't know why they didn't bring him on the final mission, and like I said, Aaron Taylor-Johnson is now the master of the bit part after this and Tenet. However, in the mid-credits scene, we learn that Shepard's name has been passed over to Erich, who was a real person, a kind of mentalist who was thought to have taught Hitler his oration skills. Erich introduces Hitler to Lenin, and Hitler seems to have been behind the assassination of Tsar Nicholas and his family. This will lead to World War II. In some ways, the Shepherd did succeed as Europe's power faded heavily, but this sets us up for a sequel as we could lead into World War II, and I expect that this organisation could have been behind everything that has taken place in the Kingsman modern timeline, and may pop up in Kingsman 3. But that is it for this video. I didn't enjoy this movie as much as I thought I would. It felt very bitty, it was pretty much all over the place, and I did not like the bait and switch with Conrad. But overall, it was an enjoyable afternoon, I guess. I had some pick and mix, and I was entertained. But I will see you soon, and goodbye.